There are a few things about ancient Rome that most people know. For instance, it was founded in 753 BC, it was built on 7 hills, it was a kingdom, then a republic, then finally an empire, and at some point a bloke called Julius Caesar fought some important people and was promptly stabbed a lot. Whilst all of this is more or less true, there's a bit more to the story of the Eternal City. It's around 753 BC, and this is central Italy, Latium to be exact. Whilst we've all heard the tale of 2 brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were suckled by a she-wolf, grew to be men, Remus jumped over a wall and Romulus killed him, thus founding a city on the Palatine Hill, there's still a bit more to it than that. Since about 1000 BC, various tribes with a common language, collectively known as the Latins, had been bumbling about the fertile area around the Tiber River, here. Due to the influence of neighbouring Greek colonies to the south and the Etruscans to the north, bringing religious, literary and cultural changes to the early Romans, those nomadic tribes began to consolidate into a sedentary community, then into a larger town. It's at this point that, around 753 BC, our hero Romulus is credited by most for founding Rome, creating the Senate and being the first king of Rome. Rome's position on the banks of the Tiber River, in the centre of the Italian peninsula, and the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, made it a burgeoning hub of trade. This also made it an appealing target to foreign incursion, and in about 650 BC, the aforementioned Etruscans invaded and annexed Latium, beginning a line of Etruscan kings in Rome. After a couple, we end up with him, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, or Tarquin the Proud to his friends. Following Tarquin generally being a bit of a tyrant, in 509 BC he was overthrown, thus the Roman Republic came to be. The Senate, which had until that point only given counsel to the king, took up leadership of the small city-state. Straight away, Rome faced a series of wars with places with silly names like Veii, Tarquinii, Sabnium and Etruria, all of which it survived. In the 3rd and 4th centuries BC, Rome has a few wars with the rest of the Latins, the Samnites to the southeast, and finally the Greeks under King Pyrrhus to the south. Fun fact, after the Battle of Asculum, where Pyrrhus lost more men than he intended in a bloody victory, he is credited to have said something to the effect of, "One other such victory would utterly undo me," and that's where we get the term Pyrrhic victory from. The result of these scuffles was a Roman-controlled Italian peninsula. Then, in 264 BC, something very, very, very big happened, but before we get into that, enter Carthage. This trade-centric maritime city on the northern coast of Africa was one of the major powers of the Mediterranean, and Rome's first real test. So back to 264 BC, where a war between these two cities breaks out primarily on the island of Sicily. Here, for about 13 years, it looked like the war could go either way, until in 241 BC, the Romans finally defeat the Carthaginian fleet commanded by Hamilcar, Carthage's greatest general, thus ending that little scrap with Rome bagging a more than hefty indemnity on Carthage. But the tricky part comes when Hamilcar, on his deathbed, made his son, the considerably cooler and more famous Hannibal, swear a bit of an eternal hatred for Rome, and in 218 BC, another war kicks off, but this time with chili pachyderms. Yes, that's right, another Punic War, and Hannibal scares the Romans a good sight more than his dad did, reaching Rome's gates multiple times, but eventually the tide of war turns, when the Romans manage to send this guy, Scipio Africanus to, you guessed it, Africa, with a load of troops. The Carthaginians call Hannibal back to Carthage, Hannibal proceeds to lose spectacularly to the Romans, and there ends the Second Punic War, only this time with a much smaller and much more broke Carthage at the end of it. Carthage limps on for a couple decades more, but a few Roman senators get itchy trigger fingers, sprouting the famous phrase, "Furthermore, it is in my opinion that Carthage must be destroyed," or "Ceterum censeo Carthaginium esse delandum," for the scholarly or pretentious amongst you. And so, in 146 BC, after a lengthy siege, the city falls, and not only does Rome conquer Carthage, but also Greece later on that year. Thus, almost overnight, Rome becomes the dominant power in the Mediterranean. So, just to bring everyone up to speed, here's the situation in 146 BC. The Senate is still in power, the Roman Empire extends from the Atlantic to the Aegean, and there's a new threat on the way, barbarians. Next time we continue with army reforms, naughty generals, and empire.